Let's have an honest conversation about business climate and the environment to do business today all across America and the North American region. According to Forbes and McKinsey Company, they report an atmosphere of high confidence among small and medium-sized businesses when it comes to the growth and revenue potential of their businesses. It is estimated that 9 in 10, or 92% of these businesses expressed a high level of confidence in their company's growth prospects over the next 3 years. Additionally, another 2025 survey conducted by Forbes revealed while 95% of entrepreneurs admit facing uncertainty in the year and years ahead, they remain fairly confident in their business's ability to prosper, with 40% of entrepreneurs citing things like business coaching, AI, and technology as a key driver in their business growth strategy. For my friend David Aferiat, he is a business growth coach, a champagne enthusiast, and a storyteller who relishes the opportunity to help others align their daily routines with purpose-driven rewards, scaling their profits, and helping them to reclaim their freedom. He is a dual French-American citizen and the founder of Avid Vines, an organic champagne importer based in Atlanta. He is also the managing partner and founder of the Avid Group, which is a growth coaching firm guiding leadership teams through growth, scale, transformation, and uncertainty. This is all done by utilizing his Bloom growth system. He's built a fintech company, trade ideas from bootstrap beginnings to millions in revenue, which earned it a spot on the list of Inc. 5,000 companies list in 6 consecutive years. His leadership experience includes a stint serving as the president of the French-American Chamber of Commerce for the Southeast U.S. He's also served in a leadership capacity for the Entrepreneurs Organization Atlanta chapter. He's also served as chair of the EO's Nerve Conference with a budget of over $1 million and 500 global attendees. And Aferiat joined me this week to talk about leadership, life, and guiding people to a place of prosperity and believing in a common goal. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. If you're ready, I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program. And I'm super excited to see you on this Thursday to talk everything from wine to business to life and everything in between, my friend. And it's great to see you and happy Thursday to you, my friend.
You too. Have you always lived in Ontario?
Yeah, so my friend, I am a born and bred Canadian, for better for worse, and then considering the times we're living in, I'm thankful to be Canadian for sure, my friend.
I hear you. I hear you. I was born in Buffalo and spent a lot of time in Montreal and in Toronto.
Fabulous. And what do you think of us on the Canadian side of the border, my friend? What are your thoughts?
An amazing country, and one that I've been to many times and cherish. And it's regardless of what you think about the governments in place, the people are what count, and no none finer than Canadians that I've always come across.
Well, I'm sure that you've just made a lot of Canadian friends, my friend, because we like to create relationships at every stop along the way. So I appreciate you saying that, David. But I wanted to start our conversation this afternoon by talking about business curiosity and why you believe that that's an important trait to have, whether you're an entrepreneur or an organizational leader. Why do you think it's important to have curiosity in business, David? What are your thoughts there?
I think curiosity ties to learning. And if you're a lifelong learner, you're someone who wants to understand, seeks to understand, um, so that you can build a better bridge, or you can build a better widget, or you can build a better process, or you can understand something better than it was before. So curiosity drives learning. And if you are not curious, I don't think you are open to learning.
Absolutely. And to that point, David, I don't know if you know this, but January happens to be National Mentoring Month. And I'm curious, from your perspective, my friend, why do you think it's important to celebrate mentors both in life and in business? And I'm wondering if you can talk just a moment about the mentors that have helped to influence the business person and the individual you are today, my friend. So give me your thoughts on mentors and the importance of them, my friend.
Yeah, Kevin, it's we all go down a journey, and at some parts of the journey we lead the pack, other parts we're led by others, and it's fortunate. It's of a great fortune if you can be around others on a similar path that you surround yourself with. We are the sum of the five people we spend the most time with, right? So it pays to invest in those relationships and ensure that they're the highest quality people that you can put yourself and be amongst. And at times they lead you, and then other times you lead them. And if you've had the privilege of leading, then it befalls you to, move around the peloton. Like when the French uh, every year when they have the goodness the peloton that's in the where everyone can't believe
Yeah,
I'm forgetting the. I liken it like a peloton. There are some times where you're leading the pack, and there are other times where you are in the drag, or you're in the you are riding alongside, so that the pack can benefit. Um, and anyway, that's how I look at like mentoring. If you've received it, you're obligated to also pay it forward and give back.
yeah, absolutely. David, I know that you're an American French citizen and the founder of Avid Vines, my friend, which is an organic campaign importer based in Atlanta. And you're also the managing partner or principal of Avid Group, my friend, which is a growth coaching firm that guides leadership teams through a scale, transformation, and uncertain times, my friend, by using what you call the Bloom growth system, my friend. So I wonder if you can tell me about your work, my friend, and what makes it so fabulous.
Well, my current work is to help. I ran for 20 years a software company that was on the Inc. 5000 list for 6 years in a row, and and was used by many to help interact with the U.S. stock market from all over the world. And growing that company, we had our share of mistakes and our share of successes, obviously. And what I do now as a growth coach is I bring those experiences to help CEOs and their leadership teams get unstuck or handle the turbulence that happens around growth. So sometimes the wheels start to kind of shake and threaten to come out and off the chassis, and I work to help ensure that growth doesn't consume the company, but that can be channeled, and it doesn't consume the leaders either. Sometimes growth can be such a vortex of energy that it takes its toll, and that's not the way that I like to see businesses run. That's not the way that we ran our company, for sure. And so being able to mentor, being able to share and empower others to create the kind of systems, routines that help them simplify, prioritize, execute, and communicate what needs to get done is why I do what I do. And if it means bringing people to their best version of themselves, while a CEO and a team receives more freedom, more time gained back, or more growth or more profit, for sure, then those are the three main areas that I keep in mind, and that we ensure we deliver while doing it by being the best version of ourselves and not being stressed out, getting there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, David, what do you think, based on what you just said, what do you think is the key to grow through adversity in business and getting over adversity in business? What are your thoughts there?
What a powerful word for me is, and one that I used to create the theme around a global learning conference that brought about 500 or so CEOs from around the world in the U.S. to Atlanta about a year and a half ago, was around the theme of perseverance. And perseverance for us and for this conference, we defined as a daily commitment to a better future version of ourselves. And so how we commit to routines and habits that deliver us to a better future version of ourselves is what perseverance is all about. So we brought 3 days of learning and great speakers around how to build systems of perseverance for wellness, for business, and for family that help us persevere, that help us arrive at a better future version of ourselves. And so think about everything that you do habitually. Look at your calendar and look at what is it that you make time for. Is it wellness? Is it and does it come down to the routines that you have around what you eat? These things are the habits that guide you, that are going to deliver you to a future self. Whether that's a better version or not is up to you. So to me, that's a powerful word that invokes a relationship with your, not just who you are today, but who you want to be in the future.
With Aferiat's years in business and executive leadership, I was curious to get his take on what he believes can be classified as effective and transformational leadership of diverse teams.
Well, I think if you lead other people, you owe it to them to serve them and to make them the best version of themselves towards a goal that everyone agrees we want to achieve. So again, I come back to that perseverance in the sense of what kind of routines do you want to put in place that people are excited to follow so that they can apply themselves in a specific way towards a goal, and that goal should be towards something that is greater than themselves. Like we come together for these businesses that we create for the software company, and at its apex, it was around helping people to earn back more time and resources for themselves to pursue their dreams. And so we would talk sometimes to customers and subscribers who used the markets and the liquidity of the markets to build and pursue their dreams of opening up a soccer academy for inner city youth, or for a photographer to smooth out the ups and downs of the seasons of wedding season in Florida. And once you understand how people use your service or your product, you start to understand how you impact their lives, and that can be of great importance when everyone shows up to work to figure out, why are we doing what we're doing?
Yeah, and I know for you, your leadership experience includes serving as the president of the French American Chamber of Commerce, and you've all for the Southeastern chapter, my friend, and you've also served as the U.S. president of Experience Entrepreneurs and Organization, my friend. So I'm for the Atlanta chapter. So I'm also curious to ask you about those experiences specifically, and what you learned about, the importance of diverse leadership and really meeting people where they are. What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Yeah, Kevin, it's when I was privileged to lead, just for example, the EO chapter in Atlanta, I put a lot of thought into the theme for the year, so that when I spoke about the chapter and the 150 or so members of that chapter, and the board that I had assembled to help me make the most of our learning that we do in the chapter, and the events we put on, and the members that we onboard and such. Those are important processes to a thriving chapter built for entrepreneurs to connect with each other as peers and learn, and to lead others as I said before, is a privilege, and get the most out of a board for that year. It comes down to setting a vision and being able to authentically speak to that vision. For my year, I thought long and hard, and went to several advisors and several mentors, and those closest to me, to kind of understand how could I lead another group of entrepreneurs who they themselves are hugely successful and are taking time away from their family and their businesses to volunteer on a board for the year. And what do we want to do in that year together to serve the chapter and its members? The theme I came up with was a hero's journey, in the sense that our members were the heroes and we were a collected group of guides to help ensure that their journeys were successful, and getting them through the year from a point A to another point B, and to provide the kinds of experiences for learning and connections and spaces to grow as business owners, so that their businesses could thrive, their employees could thrive, and their customers could also benefit. It all is quite impactful, and the ability to come up with a strong theme and then take these guides on a journey each month in different locations, learning about each other in different ways, was my job in terms of keeping them focused on what our goals were for the year, and carving out what little time I could outside of their own volunteer activities, their own businesses, and their own families, in order to serve something greater than themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And David, my next three questions, I'm interested to get your thoughts on some statistical findings. And the first of these three questions is this, my friend. Last year LinkedIn did a study that found that nearly 43% of CEOs today rated their conflict management skills as their biggest area for their own personal development and growth, my friend. So talk to me about the importance of conflict management as a leader, and your thoughts on those findings from LinkedIn, my friend. What are your thoughts there?
Well, it doesn't surprise me. Clients that I work with as a growth coach often have some area of improvement to make in terms of how they function as a team. And I'm guilty of it, when I ran our software company, of not necessarily always creating the safest environment for people to be vulnerable and connect in a space which they could share certain things. Just a natural, or rather, I shouldn't say natural, but sometimes it's just a consequence of how you call a meeting together and how people are vying for attention and credit and driven by their own, personal agendas. I have found that as a growth coach, what I bring now is a much more intentional framework that's focused around having a meeting where we learn about who we are beyond the roles that we play in this company, so that a little bit more trust can be built and a little bit more commonality, and we'll call it like psychological safety, can be created, so that people start to have a outward mindset. What is an outward mindset? An outward mindset is something where I think about your inputs, my outputs, I care about because they are your inputs. And that might be the relationship between marketing's output as the input to sales, or finances output as the input toward a purchasing manager or an operations person. The idea being that I serve an internal client rather than throwing something over the cubicle wall or saying, hey, I got my job done. What about your part? Caring about how, especially at a leadership level, caring about how certain outputs are consumed internally is of a high importance. And if you can build meetings and experiences where people get to see each other beyond the roles that they play, then we start to care about who they are, and we start to lean in and hold each other mutually accountable, so that I'm not just accountable for marketing. I'm actually accountable to you in sales. I'm actually accountable to the other leader in charge, that's who's the CFO or even the operations person. And then you start to get the best out of people because they believe that they are, that what they say and their contributions are valued, seen, heard. That goes a long way toward conflict resolution.
Yeah, and David, I'm also curious to get your thoughts on, this talent, agency released. The name of the agency is Talent MLS, and they released a study last year that said that 45% of managers today will admit that their companies don't do enough to cultivate a culture of future leaders and molding future leaders. And I'm wondering your thoughts on the importance of, closing the leadership gap in terms of developing new leaders, and the importance behind that mission, my friend. What are your thoughts there?
I think it's exceptionally important for an organization to keep growing, to cultivate leaders from within, and to the degree that in my work as a growth coach, I work with the leadership teams to get this kind of communication and framework working, so that we create an outward mindset, we develop the mutual accountability within that team, and then it's meant, this meeting structure and the way that we meet is meant, and the way that we solve issues and problems is meant to go down deeper into the organization, so that managers and directors also work their particular departments and lead in a way that also evokes this kind of outward mindset. All of this is very dependent on being exceptionally clear and aligned around what the company priorities are for the quarter and what must be done on a weekly basis. Mm-hmm. It's exceptionally clear. So it's exceptionally important and to be so clear that everyone should be able to come to work every day and answer three questions. Where are we as a company? Where are we as a department? Where are we going? And then what's my role in getting us there? And if everyone is pretty clear about that, thanks to whatever meeting structure or whatever communication or whatever execution cadence is adopted by the company, if everyone can answer those questions, everyone is moving in the right direction. And therefore, the development of managers around such a system that creates this kind of clarity and alignment, that is exactly what you want, to foster. That's an environment where people can learn better because they see the results and they see momentum happening, because goals are priorities are so clear and everyone's so focused on what has to be done.
Yeah, and David, I'm also curious to ask you about leading by example, because research from that same report noted that 53% of today's managers believe that leading by example is the most effective, a management style, but only 36% say that their leadership style from their manager is, ineffective, and only 8% of that same report say that the whole leadership development sort of apparatus as an organization is effective, my friend. So how do you think we can compel more leaders to lead by example? And what are your thoughts when you hear those findings, my friend?
I don't know if I understood everything from the last part of this study, but leaders who don't lead by example have to answer, have to face more questions than the opportunity to give answers. A lot more gets questioned. I think there becomes a lot more internal drag. When I work with my clients, we start with the leadership team about how we reimagine and how we organize and communicate what the annual plans are, what the quarterly priorities are, and how a leadership team meeting each week can resolve certain issues that bubble up to the surface of the leadership team, where only the leadership team can answer them. As we drive that down into the rest of the organization or around the rest of the organization, it's done so because the leaders themselves have understood what the processes of creating a safe environment to be vulnerable and to share and to create the kind of cadence of quarterly priorities and weekly to-dos and measurement of KPIs. All of that cascades down into the rest of the organization. So it actually is very empowering to see leadership say, this is a system that we're using and we've done it ourselves for the last 90 days. And now we're introducing it to the rest of the company. That is the way that we meet, the way that we communicate, and the way that we're going to be presenting annual goals, quarterly priorities, and such.
Yeah, absolutely. And David, tell me about the life-changing voyage that you went on, or that your father experienced, my friend, that you say really helped to change your life, my friend. Tell me about the voyage and what do you want people to know about it, my friend?
Just that my father's story informs and impacts my life. I think it's kind of like a pendulum. My grandfather was very entrepreneurial, but lived in a very tumultuous time where he had to uproot the family from where they were and flee kind of revolution and move to America and start over. And that was a very kind of in many ways rewarding decision, but also a tough one. And I think my father saw that, and his journey is a bit different than mine. His was more a corporate kind of very successful career in hospitality, and for me, it's knowing that story informs a lot of my decisions of the risks I've taken and companies that I've been privileged to create and to lead, and so they're signposts, if you will, that I have used in the past to make these kind of life decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. And you bring that same passion and purpose to your wine ventures now, my friend, where you bring the same, elegance and depth to American tables through through that portion of your business ventures, my friend. So tell me about your interest in wine and why it's so important to you to bring such an elegant product to the table, my friend. Tell me more.
You're hired, Kevin. You're hired. Yeah, that's a great description. And listen, wine is so many elements of life. It's chemistry, it's geography, it's history, it's it's part of a culinary experience. It's culture, it's science, it's so many things, and the ability to kind of contemplate, where something comes from and why it tastes the way it does, and the process, to make it is so steeped in history and so steep in tradition and process, or in a particular kind of routine, that it's to be, in my book, admired, and to be used in a way that's as essential as any herb or spice in a dish that you're cooking. So I love to cook, and wine is the perfect kind of complement to some of the flavors that you create and put on a dish. So it happens that because of my French and American background, that I've always been around wine. And when we visited, I had the good fortune of visiting the Champagne region in around 2018, came across a very young and wonderful winemaker of Champagne that inspired me to create a company around his brand and others, to bring this kinds of experiences that were only in France at the time, and bring them to the best customers in the U.S. who could appreciate it, wanting to drink organic champagne and then wake up the next day with no regrets, in the sense that nothing in the champagne to give them a headache the next day because of the high quality and manner in which it's made.
Yeah, absolutely. And David, more broadly, I'm curious to ask you the importance of finding your own individual identity in business, and the importance of staying grounded and adaptive, my friend. What are your thoughts on finding an identity in business, but also staying grounded and having the ability to adapt? So, what are your thoughts there, my friend?
Yeah, Kevin, I think it comes down to not putting your whole identity into any business, not putting your whole identity into any role that you're playing at any given moment, whether that's a CEO, or whether that's even a volunteer, or sometimes fatherhood even changes depending on the age of your kids and when they leave the home and so forth. So putting your identity into these kind of transient roles that we have over the course of our life can lead sometimes to, as it did for me during certain transitions, left kind of scratching my head saying, well, what am I now? It's not so seamless to be able to go from CEO, for instance, to a business coach. But that transition was helped, as most of transitions, I believe, can be in a career, if you put your identity not in the role that you were playing, but in the values that you live by. And so our family has its own kind of coat of arms, or family values that we have identified, and that helps us make decisions and helps us filter certain friends, at different times of our lives. And being rooted in that is a very powerful way of going through life than putting all the marbles in one hat, career hat, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that you have what you call Bloomberg Growth Diagnostics, my friend. And one of the core three of my friends are three questions that you ask any client you work with, my friend. And those three questions are: where are you now? How do you measure your team's capacity for execution? And the trust that you build with inside the walls of a company, my friend. So I'm wondering if you can dive deeper in those three questions and why they're so important to you with the clients you work with, my friend.
Well, yeah, it's even deeper than that. When I'm always providing value, so no matter if you're a client or not, our first conversations are always around what is it that's causing the agitation or frustration in the business. With in conversations with a CEO or an owner, we try to get to what is it that's in the way from either gaining more freedom out of the business, gaining more growth out of the business, or gaining more profit out of the business. And one of the ways is to do an assessment across what are 8 areas of the business. And in looking and grading them, we'll have a conversation where we'll get a score from the CEO, from you, the owner, and then we'll get an estimate as to what the leadership team might grade the company across these 8 pillars. And then when we have a conversation with the CEO and the leadership team, we get to have really interesting conversations from their score, what their actual is. So 3 data points: the owners, the estimate of the leadership teams, and the actual leadership team's score creates an assessment for that I use to help kind of diagnose, like, in fact, this is where perceptions differ on the sales engine of the company, or this is where perceptions differ on how the company operates and manufactures what it does. Then by probing into those gaps in perception, we quickly get to and surface, like, well, lots of particular issues. Then the exercise becomes, in what order will we prioritize these? In what order do these have to be solved and resolved in some way? And then we start to introduce the elements that I bring, in any engagement with my clients as a growth coach, using this framework that we call Bloom Growth, where we start to prioritize what those issues are that we want to resolve. And they usually are prioritized based on what is the annual plan, that we're currently operating under. Is it the best one? In 3 years' time, what does this lead to? And what's an overall vision of the company that we're trying to achieve? So it all kind of starts to boil up and boil down and get aligned when we start labeling and looking at these different perceptions that a leadership team has vis-a-vis these elements of the business.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that point, David, building on what you just told me, I'm wondering how you marry sort of clarity and accountability, and how you think those two things are connected both in business and in life, my friend. What are your thoughts there?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question one more time?
Yeah, I'm just curious on how you think clarity and accountability are interconnected both in business and in life.
I think we're all accountable to the routines, and we're all accountable to some future version of ourselves, and for our business. Otherwise, what are you doing every day? Every day we try to get better. So the relationship we have with our businesses to be better than it is today, and to ourselves to be better than who we are today, and I believe is a fair balance. You don't want to arrive at a business success at the expense of your better future self, and you wouldn't arrive at your best self if your business was absolutely failing. So it all comes down to what are the best routines that you can do on a daily basis that move the needle forward, and that comes down to decisions about what we eat, how much sleep, and what kind of exercise we get, all the way down to what kind of leadership team meeting do we want to have, and how do people feel when they leave that meeting? How clear are people about what they need to do for this week to get us to the quarter that we're trying to achieve? Answers to those 3 questions. What is everyone? Where are we? Where are we going? What's my role in getting us there?
Absolutely. And David, I've got 2 questions left for you, and the first of these 2 questions is this, my friend. I talk to business leaders about the importance of hiring folks with disabilities all the time, because I was born with cerebral palsy. And David, at the age of 9, I was told that I would never walk without assistance because of the severity of my disability. And when I graduated college, I'm 37 now, but when I graduated back when I was 22, David, I went on 10 consecutive job interviews to become a sports reporter because I had a degree in sports journalism, and I was rejected 10 consecutive times, not because I wasn't qualified. It was because at the time, news directors viewed my disability as a liability. So I have dedicated my adult life to advocating for folks with disabilities to be better infused in the workforce. And I'm curious for you, what sort of competitive advantage do you think individuals with disabilities can add to the workforce? And how can we help change sort of the attitudinal barriers of employers to give more people with a disability a shot to be integrated into the workforce? My friend, what are your thoughts there?
Wow. Well, first of all, congratulations on persevering and defying odds and fighting and being accountable for your own experience, and to have this podcast as a result of your efforts. It's been going for 6 years. You're clearly someone who sees certain boundaries or certain limitations as the start of creativity and not like the end of it. So I am I'm deeply inspired by what you've accomplished, and grateful obviously to be here with you in this for this time. I believe it comes down to help shaping success stories, finding them and elevating them. And I think companies that include in their every company has a persona or segment that they go after in terms of a customer. But a lot of good companies also have a persona or segmentation of the kinds of people that they'd like to have working, that they look for. An example is, Home Depot has always had a strong relationship with former veterans of various, capabilities. Some disabled, some fully able, but strong focus on veterans because of the obviously the training and dedication to mission, and that helps their customer service in the stores and their problem solving. I have a client that's a local business that is fabulous in providing soups and salads, and her segmentation or employee kind of persona is to hire from local theater. And the idea being that, local artists and so forth have a hyper acute sense of customer service because the register and the process at the desk is kind of like being on stage. And so that they're always very engaging. And so I think if you can find those kinds of companies that have success, because and they involved those who are disabled, then raising those stories and making them, more part of an example to point to becomes a powerful way of showing people by example that we were talking about before, of what others, opens up their minds and possibilities and allows them to follow examples.
Yeah, absolutely. And David, my final question for you this afternoon has to do with, legacy from an individual and personal perspective, and as well as a professional. How do you want your legacy to be defined, my friend?
Sorry, Kevin. How do I want what?
Your legacy. How do you want your legacy to be defined, my friend?
It's kind of, legacy can be defined in many ways. It's defined as, in terms of my family, the kinds of people that they grow up to be, and how they contribute to the world. Legacy can come down to, the mark that you make with other people, and how, like Maya Angelou always talked about, people just remember not what you did or what you said to them, but how you made them feel. So I kind of root that question in, in her answer about how important it is to make sure how people feel as a result of engaging with you.
Yeah, that's super important, my friend. And finally, David, tell me if people want to get connected with you, what's the best way they can do that, my friend?
Thank you. Let's connect on LinkedIn. Find me at David Aferiat on LinkedIn. A fabulous way to kind of see some of the work that I'm doing and engage in a conversation.
Fabulous, my friend. Well, I want to thank you for engaging in this conversation and bringing your energy, effort, and enthusiasm for our time together this afternoon. Your work in the space of business growth is most appreciated. And my friend, I have to tell you, I learned a lot from you, and I want to thank you for the privilege of engaging in conversation with you and for your time this afternoon. It's most appreciated.
My pleasure, Kevin. All my best to you. Thank you so much for this time.